On June 25, 2016, the people of Great Britain voted 51% in favor to leave the European Union, commonly known as Brexit. How will this affect Great Britain, and what does the future hold, will be discussed by our two panel members. Molly Scott Cato, who is the current Green Party member for South West England, a green economist and an economic environmentalist. Our second panel member is Patrick Minford, professor of applied economics at Cardiff University and is leader of the group Economists for Free Trade. Good evening. My name is Keenan Richardson, and I'm your host for this economic podcast tonight. So without further ado, please welcome Molly Scott Cato and Patrick Minford. Miss Scott Cato, you have the floor.
Thank you, Keenan. I am so pleased to be here today and to explain why Great Britain has been duped into believing that Brexit is financially viable and the best way forward for Britain to better its economy. In order to understand why leaving the European Union is bad for Britain, I think we need to understand why we joined in the first place. The EU was created to mirror the most successful federal republic in the world, the United States of America. And Britain thought by joining the European Union, we would be stronger economically and geopolitically. After joining the EU, Britain's growth rates and GDP rates skyrocketed, as did integration. More product was crossing between countries, and the cost of doing so was kept at a minimum. Jobs were created and wages increased. The variety and the availability of products seemed limitless, all the while without taxes and tariffs. Now, with separation from the European Union, Britain will be forced to negotiate new and less beneficial trade agreements. Tariffs and taxes will have to be paid and collected, and new regulations will need to be negotiated and monitored. Jobs will be lost due to the increase in the cost of manufacturing from these tariffs and trade agreements. Wages will be decreased to keep the cost of goods from rising, and the pound has dropped already and will remain devalued. Overall, Brexit will have a devastating effect on the people of Britain. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Now over to Patrick Minford for his rebuttal.
Thank you, Keenan, and thank you, Molly, for your brief but inconclusive history of the EU. You left out some major points that are at the heart of why Britons voted to leave the EU. Firstly, the EU is made up of a group of overeducated bureaucrats who are making laws and regulations for nations they don't live in, work in, or care about. Being a member of the EU has lost Britain its sovereignty because we have lost who we are by giving our economic power to these bureaucrats. And secondly, in 2009, the EU adopted the Lisbon Treaty, giving Brits the power to leave the EU if they so wish. Prior to that, we could not leave, we could not vote on trade matters, and we had no input into regulations. We paid our £300 million yearly to be a member without any say. So in essence, Brexit is a statement of our sovereignty. Yes, you say our pound has dropped, but it regained its value a short time later. The British economy has also grown since its decision to leave, 1.8% in fact, and has consistently grown at that level for the last 2 years. Inflation has stabilized at 2.5%, unemployment has continued to fall and is now at a 40-year low of 4.3%. Housing price increases in London alone have decreased from 9.4% to 4.9% in less than 2 years. So I'm questioning your statement regarding the devastation of Great Britain due to us leaving the EU. How is leaving the EU a bad thing when we've regained our sovereignty, increased jobs and wages, improved housing prices, negotiated trade agreements that benefit Britain and its people?
Well, that sounds very interesting. Well, our time is up, Molly and Patrick, so thank you so much for your opinions on the Brexit impact on Britain. I guess only time will tell if it will be a benefit or a devastation. Thank you for listening. I'm Keenan Richardson, and good night.